Alright, hello everyone, how are you all doing today? Welcome to the episode 3 review for Stargirl. If this is your first time checking out my channel, I'd like to thank you real quick, otherwise we can get straight into it. Now, really quickly, I do have to say this is the first episode I genuinely had a bit of a problem with the main character. Um, so But even as I did all the elements building around her, such as subplots, supporting characters, I find all these are still quite compelling, quite engaging. I do want to see more of this show. Just at the moment, I don't want to see more of Stargirl herself. If you've already watched the episode, let me know if you had a similar problem with anything yourself. Otherwise, let's continue. The episode opens up 8 years ago, 2 years after the fall of the JSA, on an emotional scene where we get deeper insight into what the driving force behind Icicle is. Now, he's the leader of the Injustice Society. His wife had passed away at this time, and it's made very clear that essentially this man is on the warpath again. Anyone who threatens the world he's trying to create. He is seemingly now empathetic in the eyes of the viewer, and I, for one, can't wait to see if the build up they're doing it to the reveal of all the villains' plans is worth it. After the flashback, we are back at home and treated to some golden oldies. A moment of Pat being a dork and Mike being Mike. We get a quick line drop to a very important subplot developing in the family, but we'll leave that for later as we get more details throughout the episode. We get Courtney kind of emboldened by her defeat, her win against the Brainwave last episode, ordering Pat that they should be searching for more villains to take down. A very childish attitude for sure, but understandable being that taking down a villain is very, let's say, an exclusive accomplishment, especially for someone at her age. In show, I'll remind you once again that she is 15. Pat tried at this point to instill some sense into her, but unfortunately he is ignored, and I feel that he really shouldn't be. This is a man who fought these guys before and who is well experienced in the matter, well versed and the like, so he really shouldn't be ignored. He continues to have no authority over either of the kids, and really, it's not cute, in my opinion, at least. Moving along, though, we get a brief scene at the local hospital where we get a not so subtle hint that Brainwave's son is probably awakening his own powers. We see a cup move, and it's implied that Brainwave himself did it, but personally, I doubt that very much. The sun isn't looking too good when we see him as well. He's very pale, his eyes are red, he doesn't look like he's getting much sleep at all. When he spots Icicle paying his father a quick visit as well, so I don't know if he knows to the relationship they have, but it's there. The scene passes quickly, but I feel that it's dense with content, or at the very least, what I perceive as content. I could get proven wrong later, but here's hoping I haven't read too far into things. Before we get back to school, one more quick scene happens between a father and his son, where the father helps by giving his son a few quick tips. They're practicing magic. The son is practicing magic for a talent show that's going to happen later, and his father, actually having experience with magic, I'm pretty sure, is experienced with the little tricks as well. So he gives him a quick tip, and he's off. We also see that the father is ignoring calls from Icicle during this scene, and I knew that conflict was going to come from this, but I wasn't expecting it to go down the way that it did. So I hope you guys stick around to know more about that. It's not all doom and gloom though, as when Courtney arrives at school, find everyone is gathered around the sign that she destroyed last episode. A quick chuckle as she walks past with a bit of a guilty look on her face. At her locker though, we get the son once again from earlier. He is eager to test out a trick on Courtney, but unfortunately he does fail uh, slightly when he pulls out the wrong card. Not wanting to embarrass him as there's a crowd gathering, Courtney quickly lies to save him from any humiliation. A nice little scene that made me want to see more of this kid. He does seem very cheerful and charismatic. I don't dislike him for sure. Um, we then meet back up with Pat as he himself visits Brainwave at the hospital, where he manages to get enough information out of a doctor to know that there are definitely other members of the ISA here in town. Speaking of which, we see Icicle has paid the father from earlier a visit since his calls are remaining unanswered. The tension builds as Icicle begins to reprimand the father for not going with Brainwave to take care of Stargirl. I've got to say that these scenes are some of my favorite. You know, when the villains are being villainous without being cringy, like Alice over there at Batwoman. Definitely refreshing to see some actually menacing villains. Another good deed. Another good scene indeed. Sorry. Followed by one scene that really gets me in the feels because Mike's in trouble and he tries to say that Pat doesn't know about video games, but Pat gets a chance to talk about some of the most classic video games, arcade games, and oh god, I almost cried. He listed those games from yesteryear, and I never got the chance to experience the arcade scene myself, but I do have love for these classics as I did still get a chance to play them, albeit on one of those pirate controllers that held a bunch of games. He really is the best character, though. Pat really is the best character. We also get a bit of an actual punishment for a change. Mike will be starting a paper route, albeit in 2020, where I didn't know kids still had paper routes. Anyways, we join Courtney's mother at work where she gets a chance to move up in the workplace. But this only really moves her closer to who we know are the villains. Plenty of story possibilities there, I will admit, and I can't help but speculate where things may lead to. Past that juicy tidbit, we are back at school where it's announced over the loudspeaker that a bus will take participating students to the talent show after school. And then we get to see more of the bitchy popular girls bullying Yolanda right now. Right during this scene, who earlier had slut written across her locker and now has some nice flowers painted on in place of the word slut. I actually feel bad for the janitor during this scene because he can't just leave that up. The janitor now has to wash all of the paint off. But back to the show, we see Courtney try to step in between Yolanda and her bullies, but only manages to upset both parties. Thankfully, girls aren't just instant friends in this series, at least so far. They all walk away from each other in a huff. Then a teacher with a fantastic sense of humor. This show really does move quick. Gets introduced to us in a scene that's supposed to be about a bit of a budding romance between Courtney and this guy in front of her that she can tell drew the paintings on Yolanda's locker. But all this time, I can only focus on the teacher himself, wondering if he's ever going to get his own stand up routine. Then, in a scene cut out of the CW version of the show, Courtney's mother gets a visit from a Jordan, Icicle's secret identity, where she is invited to a meeting for a task force made for one of her ideas from an earlier scene. But she doesn't want to attend, or she denies the invite because she wants to go to the family dinner set up at the beginning of the episode. And it's nice to see a mother prioritize her family above work. Later, school's out for the day, and on her way home, Courtney comes to a field where a star has been iced into the field, which sets her off, and she runs home to inform Pat. Pat tries to calm Courtney down at this point, but she's too ready for a fight, and ultimately he's forced to go with her because she's gonna go without him and he has no control over her. They go back to the field where the star was and are promptly attacked from an unseen enemy, and we get to see why Icicle is the leader. He sets up a trap, very obviously, and even though our heroes knew what they were walking into, his first step is to essentially disable them, or at least disable the more dangerous looking one, being the stripe suit. So he quickly he attacks. He's unseen, and Courtney, with her need to fight, she judges where the icicle was attacking from and runs into the forest on her own. We get a quick jump cut to Courtney's mother at work. No, coming home. Courtney's mother coming home, and she's in a rush. It's very clear that this was important to her, and she rushed home only to find an empty house. And I feel terrible for her. She was clearly looking forward to it, but no one else seems to care in her view. Obviously, Pat was just there, but due to the icicle problem, they had to leave. Back to the fight, and once again, unseen and with deadly precision, Icicle attacks. Courtney would have been dead for sure if not for the cosmic staff taking the hit for her, but now the staff itself is frozen and unusable for the most part. Her only weapon is disabled. Now Icicle takes this chance to reveal himself to her, as she doesn't present any more of a threat. It would have been the end of it at this point if it wasn't for Pat launching a rocket fist that flies Icicle away, but this isn't the end. Icicle ends up on a bridge where the school bus from earlier, the one made on the announcement, is making its way back from the talent show. Icicle uses this chance to freeze the road so that he can get away, I suppose. Although he did have the upper hand in the fight, I'm surprised he chose to run away at all. Although I'm enjoying myself greatly. It's a classic setup. Why shouldn't I? Honestly. So before the bus falls, it's Pat to the rescue. Once he rescues the kids start filing out of the bus, and we see the kid, the son, the magician's son from earlier, the one who performed his magic with Courtney. Icicle is seen to blow a wind, and this wind picks up a few cards from the deck within the boy's hand. and he scrambles to collect the cards, but unfortunately, he gets in the way of a car that can't properly stop because the road is still frozen, and Icicle further freezes it, and sadly, he is killed. Honestly, though, it is good stuff. He had so few scenes, and I cared about this character who probably didn't even get 2 minutes of screen time, really? Maybe 3 at max? And to actually feel bad about his death is quite a good sign of writing, I'd say. Although some of you may not be as empathetic as I am. Here is Stargirl's failure. Something to knock her back into the reality of what happens when you face off against a supervillain. And the problem is she completely takes the wrong lesson from this. I almost face palmed because this is where the writing takes a bit of a dive, but only when it concerns Courtney. This is where I felt the episode fell apart. A kid just died, and instead of stepping back and really taking stock of the situation, she continues to ignore all of Pat's advice, and she plans to start a new JSA, getting more kids in front of these supervillains. Pat, in an effort to stop her, had taken her to where the JSA held their tools, the things that gave them their powers. But again, her taking the wrong lesson, she comes back after Pat leaves to gather all these things herself. I really did not like this because even when she fails to hear Pat's advice and someone ends up dead because of this, she continues to ignore the man. Pat has proven that he should be listened to. And with no self-awareness, she has moved backwards in character development. So much good writing throughout the show. Why is none of it being used on Courtney's character? There are a few more things to talk about, though, that about does it for Courtney's part. One scene we get is the father from earlier grabbing his wand, trying to confront Icicle, but sadly he too is killed, leaving his wife behind with a dead son and a dead husband on her conscience. As well, Courtney's mother has clearly had a change of priorities, and she is the only one not at the family dinner the next time it happens. So, a lot more great setups for the supporting cast, which is both a good thing and a shame, because now I'm watching the show for everything else but Stargirl herself. That's no good for a superhero show. With that though, that's about does it for me. Though I will still watch the next episode and I will continue to review them. You can go ahead and subscribe if you do want more Stargirl reviews. Please go ahead and leave a like, and I want to ask you what your thoughts on the episodes are. Leave those in the comment section down below. Definitely let me know how I can improve my content as well. I don't want to find myself lacking in any quality that I can actually improve upon. So please please go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time, and take care.